You know, we're always getting this talk about not supporting Democrats, and you get some of these, I call them coons, you call them whatever you want, as far as coming off the Democratic plantation, other various comments that they make as far as supporting Democrats versus supporting Republicans. And I listen to a lot of this and I read a lot of this, and I say to myself, why would I vote for a Republican? What are Republicans actually offering the black community? I'm not talking about handouts that Republicans are always talking about Democrats offering to the black community. I'm saying actual things of substance. I'm talking about things such as the ability to vote without being placed under a microscope, without having obstructions placed in our way. I'm talking about economic equality, okay? And I want to hear specifics as far as how is the economic opportunity going to be placed on a level playing field. I want to hear about things like education. Now, don't get me wrong. The Democrats have been woefully inadequate in a lot of these areas. And I feel like the the black community, I keep saying African American, the black community needs to hold everybody's feet to the fire. But when I come down to the bottom line, at least there is an offer of something by the Democrats that we can at least hold or hang our hats on. Something that at least gives the appearance of being positive. When I look to the Republican Party, when I look to the lack of outreach, to hell with outreach, the lack of communication with the black community, it gives me pause, to be honest with you. I look at things like the Voting Rights Act, Section 5, that was struck down. And at the point that it was struck down, how there was an immediate bipartisan cry that Congress could get this fixed and get it fixed quickly. Well, hell, it's been 2-3 years since Section 5 got struck down, and there's been no action whatsoever. I take that back. There's actually been action in order to fix it, but it's Republicans, and in particular a Republican that's the head of the Judiciary Committee, that is blocking legislation that's already been proposed. That's Mr. Goodlatte from Virginia. I don't hear the GOP talking about criminal justice reform. No, let me take that back. There is a bipartisan effort to make criminal justice reform. Now, the first time I heard about it, being honest, it was Rand Paul who I first heard about it. And he went on various mainstream media outlets, including this channel, News One, to talk about it. So I had to give him plenty of brownie points. And to be honest with you, if Rand Paul was running in this election versus Hillary Clinton, I'm going to be honest, I would actively consider giving this guy my vote. Now, do I agree with him on some things that he's pushing, being a libertarian in the basically in the Republican Party? No, I don't agree with him on everything, but I kind of have to believe, based on his actions, that he's going to be somewhat more fair and do the right thing somewhat more than I believe Hillary Clinton will do. Now, she's talking a good game, to be honest with you. And I do believe, as far as Supreme Court justices are concerned, she may appoint judges that are more progressive, less conservative. So I might have some issues there. And like I said, I would actively consider, strongly consider Rand Paul, but one of the drawbacks would probably be the Supreme Court justice nomination point. But the problem that I see also is that Tom Cotton, who I have major issues with, is blocking the criminal justice reform legislation from getting a vote within committee and coming to the floor. Now, I believe both of these bills would pass with overwhelming bipartisan support. But it's a Republican that is blocking both of these things. And that's not all. So anyway, in this particular segment, Roland Martin, he has a gentleman who has been brought on by the GOP, not by the Trump people, but by the GOP, in order to attempt to reach out to the black community. Now, I got to tell you, this man has got a hard way to go because of the issues I just outlined. And after listening to him, I kind of like the guy, to be honest with you. I mean, he's not one of those guys that really puts out a false face as far as exactly what's going on. He won't address it head on and admit total wrongdoing, but he's not going to, or he doesn't appear to be a person that's going to say everything is right and rosy in America and the GOP as far as the black community is concerned. So there may be some hope if they can basically just come around and do some of the right things. As a matter of fact, if they're just neutral and don't allow wrong things to happen, consideration could be given to them, because, you know, it's just like anything else. The Republicans aren't wrong about everything, and the Democrats are not right about everything. There's always some type of a mix that seems right to me. In my opinion, and I'm not alone, America is socially progressive, but fiscally conservative. The Democrats are all, for the most part, socially and fiscally progressive, and the Republicans are, for the most part, socially and fiscally conservative. And when calmer heads prevail, they normally should be able to get together and each side gives some, and the country's better off for it. But anyway, here's the video of the person that's been put in charge by the RNC in order to try to make an outreach to the black community.
Black women voted at a higher rate in 2008 and 2012 than any other group in the country. But guess which party they hate the most? Republicans. That is, Republicans do worse when it comes to black women than anybody else. We now sit 83 days away from the presidential election, the general election, and Donald Trump is not polling well when it comes to African Americans. Recent polling data out of Ohio and Pennsylvania shows he's polling at 0%. Plus minus margin is somewhere around 3%, so it could be as high as 3%, or it could be negative 3%. Right now, let's talk with Ashley Bell. He was recently hired by the Republican National Committee as a Director of African American Political Engagement. He joins us right now. So, Ashley, first and foremost, you've got a candidate not liked by black folks, not liked by Arab Americans, not liked by college-educated white voters. You've got a problem.
I got a job to do. You know, it's not just my job, it's the job of the whole party. You know, we have work to do, but I'm glad this chairman, Reince Priebus, is willing to do it and invest the resources to keep trying to increase our stance with black Americans. You could easily look at those poll numbers. Some candidates, some parties would have said, no, let's give it up, let's focus other places. We're doubling down.
But here's the issue, though, and I have talked to a number of black Republicans who support Donald Trump, and I've asked them, where's Donald Trump's job plan? Haven't seen it. Where's Donald? She talks about black unemployment. I've never seen him actually talk about it, address it in detail. Where's his HBCU plan? Haven't seen it. Where's his plan when it comes to empowerment zones? Haven't seen it. Where's his plan even when it comes to education, issue of school choice, which is high among the list of African Americans? Haven't seen it. So how do you think you're going to get black votes when you have a candidate who refuses to go into detail about policy matters, who gives a speech the other day in Detroit and doesn't even address what happened economically in Detroit?
You know, the one thing about the Republican Party is that we understand that the president can't govern alone. There are leaders in the Congress who touch on all those issues. If he gets elected, we hope he works with Republicans.
But he's at the top of your ticket. And so if you have a candidate who doesn't even address those issues, how do you think you're going to get black votes?
Look, he gave a speech on economic policy just a couple of days ago. He did not touch on very race-specific solutions. That's true.
No. I didn't say race-specific.
Okay.
The reality is this here. If you focus on where the need is the most, African American Latinos will be at that top. Wasn't even discussed. Wasn't even mentioned.
Well, we have to do a better job of telling our narrative, because I think it was. When Donald Trump says things like, you know, I'm going to decrease capital gains, the job of the Republican Party, myself and everyone else included, is to explain to black voters what that means. That means if you're a brother and you live in a neighborhood and you're trying to flip a house, and you're trying to flip that house so you can make, it's a dilapidated house, you're trying to fix it up and make money, the money you make off that house is a capital gain. We just have to tell the story in a narrative so people understand it,
Ashley,
not necessarily that it's not there.
When we talk about decreasing capital gains, you're benefiting folks who are on Wall Street. You're not benefiting that brother who's on
Hey, you
Street.
are. If he's gonna make, if you're flipping a house because you are maybe an ex-felon or someone who can't get a normal job, and you all of a sudden have a windfall of cash, that matters. Republicans believe you can take that money, and we're not worried about you, you know.
All right, let's stop right there real quick. How many brothers or sisters that are convicted felons that are going to come into a windfall of cash where they have the opportunity to pay 100% cash, because they're not going to be able to get a mortgage, to pay 100% cash for a property and flip it after renovating it? How many? 1%? Hell, 1/10 of 1%? No, that was a bad argument, my friend. That reduction in the capital gains tax is basically for people who are invested in Wall Street in order to get those people who already have money some more money. So that's not speaking to the black community or any community that is not economically advantaged, let's say.
save it, not just save it and not spending it. You want to keep that money because you want to buy another house in your neighborhood to flip that house and do it again.
You recently had the voter suppression ruling in North Carolina.
Right.
I haven't heard Donald Trump talk about that. I've heard him talk about touting voter ID when in fact the region that was passed in North Carolina, the region that was passed in Pennsylvania was about so-called voter fraud, even though there's absolutely no evidence of that. And also the Washington Post recently had a story talking about the nearly 1 billion votes have been cast, an exhaustive analysis, 31 examples of voter fraud out of 1 billion votes being cast. And so if you're a black voter in North Carolina, has Trump talked about that? Has he talked about that particular bill which was thrown, which was where the court said it was a targeted effort to suppress black voters?
You know, it's interesting. Donald Trump has talked about he's afraid of a rigged election. Now, he needs to get more specific on that. I know.
Yeah, what does that mean?
I understand.
Yeah, but here's the deal.
It is a concern.
If he's a,
Let me tell you what that meant. When Donald Trump gave that speech and he was talking about a rigged election, he targeted Southeast Pennsylvania for the area that they had to watch for the election being rigged. If you're unfamiliar with the geography of Pennsylvania, let me tell you who he was talking about. He was talking about Philadelphia and its suburbs, and he was specifically pointing out the black population that is a majority in Philadelphia, if not its suburbs. So again, that in my mind was an attack on the black community, calling us cheats and voter defrauders, which absolutely is not the case, has not been documented. Hell, documented, they really can't make any kind of a case for it, even though they tried to put laws in order to restrict black voters, and they were somewhat successful in the 2012 election, but that's not going to work this time around.
Afraid of a rigged election? Are black folks afraid of a rigged election?
I think this,
when you have a bill like in North Carolina, where the court said it was a laser-like focus specific on black folks.
no, I agree. I think
That was a Republican legislature, a Republican governor who signed it.
mutual interests here agree that this could be a rigged election. Everyone needs to
No, stop. You keep saying this could be a rigged election.
Right.
How?
Well, you just brought it up. You just brought a voter fraud.
No. 31 examples of voter
Right.
fraud out of 1 billion votes cast. 1 billion. How is that a large example of voter fraud?
Well, look, just because every election we all need to be concerned to make sure the right people are voting. Every election.
I got you.
Okay, the right people are voting. Now that can be taken two ways. That could be taken as, the right people meaning legitimate citizens, or the right people meaning the people that we want to vote. Now I'm going to give him the benefit of the doubt and say he's talking about legitimate citizens, but you got to be careful with your words, brother, because it can be taken various ways.
Every election.
31 billion,
You never take a
31 out of a billion? 31 of a billion.
I'm not sure.
That's 31.
Right.
And 1 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0 0.
Roland. So you would like to say there's never going to be voter fraud in the
No,
future?
what I'm saying is this here. When you have Republicans in North Carolina
Right.
who specifically pass a bill say, oh, this is to protect voter fraud, that's non-existent. When in Pennsylvania, they did the exact same thing, and when the leading Republican in Pennsylvania said in 2012, this voter bill will get Mitt Romney elected, when in fact, when they went to court, the Attorney General filed a document with the state that said, we have no evidence of voter fraud. None. So they passed a bill based on a lie. What I'm saying is, where's Donald Trump on this issue?
We would all like to hear Donald Trump expound a lot more details about a lot more issues. This is one that I agree that some voters will be interested in hearing about. He should, as he develops his policy, talking about what he means for a rigged election. I agree with you. It should be thought about a little bit more.
Here's a New York Times story. Shelley, pull up my iPad, please. GOP urges Donald Trump to broaden outreach to black voters. In the story, they talk about what he did and did not do, did not go to the National Association of Black Journalists with any black media outlet. I haven't heard of him. Matter of fact, he talks about black folks to Bill O'Reilly, which I'm sorry, last I checked, is not really the place maybe you want to go to discuss black voters. How can you even remotely think you're going to get black voters when you have a candidate who won't even talk to black voters? Who has not done, according to the story, who has not done a single event targeting black voters.
That's about to change. And I can say that I'm proud to say that one of the first things we did coming into the RNC is to try to find ways of working with our coalition team in the field to make sure that can change. That is a stark reality that I understand, and I think many black Republicans understand, and that is the first step going forward in how we lay out the next 90 days. Is making sure we show up on black campuses, make sure we have black events. That is what engagement is. That's part of the process.
This is a quote from Tara Wall, longtime Republican National Committee operative. Quote, he's alienated a number of minority voters, and that's reflected in his low numbers. You have to do the bare minimum, and he's not even doing that. So when you say it's going to happen, like what? What is he going to do?
Well, it's going to start with us working. Look, we have 12 battleground states. 12 battleground states that have coalition directors. The Trump campaign has hired coalition directors in all 12 states. My job, support Omarosa, support black engagement, states. All the battleground states.
Okay, those are?
You want to list them: Ohio, Pennsylvania, Florida, Iowa, New Hampshire, North Carolina, Virginia. How many do we have now?
So we can blow New Hampshire off. Ain't many black folks there. But again though, what? So you're telling me that Donald Trump and the Republican National Committee is going to be active in black communities in those states. So doing exactly what?
Well, it begins like right now. We're rolling out a plan to engage younger millennials on college campuses. You will see our collective effort to be on college campuses to talk about the issues that face historically black college. You're going to see us working with.
Does Donald Trump have an HBCU plan? Because I've yet to see it.
Well, part of the first 90 days, the last 90 days, is working with our coordinated campaign and coming up with a plan to engage black voters.
No. I don't mean engage. I'm saying, does Donald Trump have a specified plan to deal with HBCUs?
Well, you know the answer to that. He doesn't.
Okay, so not only that, Donald Trump doesn't even have a specified plan when it comes to even school choice. I was at the National Charter School Conference where literally the folks there reached out to his campaign, and the answer that came back was, we'll get to that after the election.
Look, nobody is trying to make excuses for the lack of specific policies that relate to African Americans. Nobody is.
So if he doesn't have a specific plan, how do you even remotely going to get black voters? Because he has no plan.
Because we're campaigning as a Republican Party. We're campaigning as a party of opportunity, the party with big ideas, good ideas for black America. And what we have to do is make sure our message reaches everybody.
But Ashley, he's leading your ticket.
Right.
If the person leading your ticket has no plan of action, has no agenda, has no specifics, you're not going to get black votes.
Roland, our job is to continue to compete. We're not going to concede this election to Democrats. And a lot of folks like us to pack up and go home. We're not. We're going to keep fighting. We're going to keep talking about the policies that the Republican Party has been for and remain for before and after this election. It doesn't end November 9th. The fight to make sure that this country has two options, that black America has two parties that are fighting for their vote, doesn't stop November 8th. Everything we're doing now is trying to institutionalize in the Republican Party.
But
the fight continues.
Well, here's the issue for me. How can the Republican Party say they're fighting for the votes of black folks when the party is making a concerted effort to suppress black votes?
No, I don't think the party's making a concerted effort.
Pennsylvania, North Carolina, Virginia, Mississippi, Alabama, Florida, Texas, Ohio. Those are all places where Republicans have done that. North Carolina, Republican legislature, Republican governor. Texas, Republican legislature, Republican governor. Ohio, Republican governor. I mean, I can go on and on and on. From the moment the Supreme Court
that all Republicans try to suppress black votes.
Here's what I can say. The fact of the matter is here, in Ohio, they try to suppress the vote. They got more than 300,000 signatures to put it on the ballot. Guess what? A legislature.
Put what on the ballot?
put on about to repeal the voter suppression law in Ohio. What did the legislature do? They pulled it because they knew they were going to get voted down in November 2012. That's Ohio. Pennsylvania passed a voter ID law, voter suppression, with no evidence of voter fraud. North Carolina, one of the most egregious examples. We see what happened in Florida with Governor Rick Scott, Republican. They white folks off the polls and of the election rolls, and many of them were eligible to actually vote as well. We saw so we can see example after example. And so what I'm saying is this here: how can Republicans talk about competing for black votes when the party in different states, the evidence is there, has tried to suppress the vote? In Texas, they just threw out the voter ID law in Texas.
Look, in a larger sense, I would hope we can agree that we want to see every American vote.
Yes.
We want every black person to vote. The RNC specifically, the Republican National Committee is under consent decree that we can't get involved in any voter challenging or anything. That's been in place for 30 years.
But the
we can't
RNC
touch it. We can't touch it. And we haven't touched
But
it.
when you have retired General Colin Powell, former Secretary of State, who went to North Carolina, stood in front of Governor Pat McCrory and said point blank, this law is wrong, this law should not pass. That was a Republican, Colin Powell, saying, you're not going to get black votes if you keep doing this crap.
Look, Roland, I agree with you. You're always going to find instances of Republicans doing things that black folks can look at and say, I don't like that. But they don't speak for my party. They don't speak for the entire party. You're always going to have those instances. And every black Republican at some point has to check those folks every time they pop up. But our role, Republican National Committee, is to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to vote for Republican if they want to. And how do we do that? We put the message on the ballot. The message and the principles are bigger than any candidate, and we'll be here after the election.
I can tell you this right now. You're not going to get black votes if the party systematically is about voter suppression. And here's the other piece here. You got Bob Goodlatte, the House Chair, the House Judiciary Committee, who refuses to move on the Sensenbrenner bill, a Republican out of Wisconsin, when it comes to the Voting Rights Act. When you have Senator Tom Cotton, Republican out of Arkansas, who's holding a criminal justice reform bill in the United States Senate.
So you many Republicans that are trying to push it. Don't get me wrong.
No, wait, hold on. But
you point out the few that are against it.
No. I have a few against it. Goodlatte from Virginia is the chair of the House Judiciary Committee. He will not allow that committee to even have a vote on the Sensenbrenner bill of the VRA. In fact, there are fewer Republican sponsors of the Sensenbrenner bill this year than there were in the last U.S. Congress. Those are Republicans. And what I'm saying is here.
It's a Republican bill. Republicans have their own.
But here's the deal. The
Democrats are supportive.
If the Republicans,
There's bipartisan support.
Well, why won't Goodlatte, will the RNC tell Congressman Goodlatte allow the committee to vote on this?
Roland, you know very well. Before I took this job, I was chair of 2020, had one job. Focus on criminal justice reform. I've been advocating for my party to push this forward consistently and relentlessly.
So will you call out Senator Tom Cotton of Arkansas, Republican, and tell him stop blocking the bipartisan criminal justice reform bill in the U.S. Senate?
I've been having that conversation before I started this job, and I'll continue to have it.
Okay, but here's the deal, though, and that's what I'm saying. When you have people like Cotton who are blocking the bill, when you have people like Congressman Goodlatte who are blocking the bill, black folks are going, show me the proof. You down with African Americans?
I'm proud of Senator Corrin, all of the senators that are behind it, who've been pushing it this far, and I know there's some that are standing in the way.
No. They're blocking it.
No,
not standing in the way. They're blocking it, Ashley, and that's the problem.
It is the same thing. Yeah, I agree with you. But I'm proud of the fact that it wouldn't be on the table if Republicans hadn't led. This is a bipartisan issue. I'm not going to let it become a partisan issue. Because the Republican Party,
the
Republican Party has
criminal justice
Rand Paul, other Republicans.
Yes, the criminal justice reform bill is a bipartisan bill, but it is a Republican, Senator Tom Cotton from Arkansas, who is blocking that bill from moving forward. They announced it several months ago, and it's gone nowhere. It is Congressman Bob Goodlatte of Virginia, the chair of the House Judiciary Committee, who is blocking Sensenbrenner's bill from moving forward, who's also Republican. And what I'm saying is, if the Republican Party wants to reach out to African Americans, they better do a much better damn job of stop blocking efforts and then saying, no, we're going to support it. Because I'll say this here. If that Sensenbrenner bill is allowed to vote on the floor, I guarantee you it'll pass with Republican and Democratic votes. Yeah. But Goodlatte is blocking it from moving forward.
100% agree. 100%.
I want to see some action. I'd love to see Chairman Reince Priebus tell Bob Goodlatte, hey, stop blocking the bill. Let it go forward with the vote. Will that happen?
That's not our job. We don't do policy. We do policy.
Actually, you do
RNC.
do policy because you do speak on policy from the party.
We do speak on the policy and the platform the Republican Party passes.
I say-
But personally, I agree with you 100%.
Let's speak on, we'll have to speak on that policy.
100%.
All right, Ashley, appreciate it. Thanks so much.
All right, brother. Good to see you.
We cut-
All right, this brother got a tough job, and honestly, I like him. I think he's got a fairly decent, not fairly. I think he's got a good attitude, but he's got a hard way to go because you can't sell the RNC, and let's make something perfectly clear. The RNC is part of the GOP. It's not the GOP. And we got a major problem with the GOP, okay? The Republican Party, of which the Republican National Committee is a part of. Those guys, RNC, basically seem like they want to do the visible right thing somewhat. It's the overall party that is in lockstep and is not really offering any type of a decent vision that would woo black voters.